Councillor Shiner to speak.
I have a motion, Mr. Chairman. And staff can put it up, but the effect of the motion is to be a minor change to what Councillor Stintz has put forward, where instead of 7 members of council and 4 citizens, my motion will be 5 members of council, 4 citizens, 1 provincial appointee, citizen appointee through the province making a recommendation to council, and 1 federal appointee through the federal government making a recommendation to City Council on their appointment. And I say that after listening carefully to the debate that's been here today and what's transpired. I mean, really, what we have right now, I'll sign it in a minute. I'm in the middle of speaking. It's okay. I promise to sign it. Sorry, Councillor Vaughan. All due respect, I don't cut you off. I'm very serious about this, and I'm extremely disappointed, in fact, because I feel that the motion is really here in front of us, because instead of working together, we're being somewhat vindictive. The motion itself, to my opinion, was spurred by the fact that a number of our colleagues on the Toronto Transit Commission decided that they wanted to change the Chief General Manager. And some of us here aren't happy. So it seems like it's a get even. We're going to get even, and we're not going to change it along the lines of what was recommended at Executive Committee. We're going to change it and put a majority of members of council here. That's what we're going to do today. And I don't believe that that's the way we should be operating. We're a city council. We're supposed to be colleagues. We're supposed to be working together. And we don't always agree what some of our agencies, boards, or commissions may do. But we're supposed to at least have the civility to work together. And I can't tell you a time that I've seen this council more divided. So I looked up the history of this council. And first of all, the reason for the appointments here is very simple. We keep saying to the federal government, show us the money. They don't put it up and say we don't need it. We say to the provincial government, show us the money. They say, no, it's only now. Their latest one is we won't even give you the money. We're only going to provide funding in the City of Toronto for projects which we own. That's been very clear what Metrolink said. And if we don't own them, you can't have them. Well, why not come down to where it really matters at the provincial government, to this City Hall, and see what's really happening with transit? Why don't we actually have a member on the Transit Commission on behalf of the provincial government that sees how hard we're struggling to balance the budget? And that if they don't think we're spending in the right direction, they have a chance themselves to say that. Why don't we have a federal member as a citizen member on this that does the very same thing? Because the federal government and the provincial government has gotten away for over a decade now with no real responsibility for public transit in the Greater Toronto Area. And the citizens of this city that we all represent, that's who's suffering. The people that live in Toronto and in the Greater Toronto Area, because as we bicker, the provincial and the federal governments run away and say, not my problem. Even the Premier saying, well, tell me what you want so I can start to spend some money, when meanwhile construction has already started on Eglinton Avenue on the underground line and money's being spent. The citizens of the City of Toronto, those that need help the most in public transit, are the pawns in the middle of this equation between the federal government, the provincial government, and the city. And what we're doing on council is we are continuing to help them make us look silly by our actions when we should be working together. And over the years, I've had my disagreement with some of my colleagues on the Transit Commission, but we found a way to work things out. So I took a little look at history as well. What's happened to recent chief general managers, and when did councillors get full control of the commission? Well, it was interesting. When in the Metro days, Metro Council finally took over full control, that's when transit started to go haywire. That's when David Gunn, that was brought on to replace Mr. Leach, who left and ran provincially and never helped us with transit funding when he was a member of the provincial government. It was Mr. Harris that did. When they left, who came on? Mr. Gunn. And what did he do? He quit for political interference. Then we had Rick Ducharme. What happened to Rick Ducharme? He quit. Political interference. Couldn't run a transit system. It was a majority of councillors. Now we have another chief general manager gone. Politicians decided. You know, the record is, in my opinion, a little bit clear that we, as members of council, haven't been the best ones running the Transit Commission. And as long as we are trying to be the majority and we're not bringing in our federal and provincial partners, it's going to continue that way. And trying to...
I'll bet you'd like another 2 minutes. A 2-minute extension has been requested. Recorded vote.
Councillor Kelly, please. Councillors Davis and Fletcher, please.
Councillor Fillion, please.
Councillor Wong Tam, please. Councillor Davis, thank you.
The extension to the Speaker's time carries unanimously, 27 in favor.
Councillor Shiner.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker. I find it very disconcerting the direction that the Toronto Transit Commission has gone within the last 12 months. I find it very upsetting the way that this council has been divided over this. I find it that we're now being vindictive and we're looking at who's going to get a seat and their lobbying that's going on here to replace some of the current members than looking at what's best for the TTC. And I'm very concerned about that. I'm not asking for a seat. I served for almost 5 years on the Transit Commission. I served through a number of chairs. I didn't always agree with them. Councillor DeSero was one, Councillor Moscow was another. We found a way to work things out. We didn't come back to council every time and keep arguing over things. But right now what we've got is a real divisiveness here. And I put my motion forward in a true sense of trying to bring our federal and provincial partners on board, on letting them participate in the process, letting them really see why their money is needed, where their money is going for, and if they have a better idea, participate in the process. Don't just kick us from the outside and say you're not doing a good job, or you're messing up, or why don't you all decide? If you're part of the process, if you're involved in it, then maybe you'll understand what the real needs are of the citizens of Toronto. And I'm doing this on behalf of the residents of Toronto who really need a strong voice at the Toronto Transit Commission with our federal and provincial partners to try and get the funding that's needed into the City of Toronto and around the GTA so transit itself can work properly in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Shiner. You have Councillor Cho to question.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Through you, Councillor Shiner. We have 4 major urban centers in Canada: Montreal, Toronto, Edmonton, Vancouver. Do you have any knowledge of among these 4 centers, if they have the model that you're recommending, like representation from federal, provincial, municipal?
Councillor Cho, I'm not sure about what the other jurisdictions have, but what I understand, and one of our biggest problems in Toronto is that neither the federal or the provincial government in the province of Ontario support public transit, in particular the provincial government, when in the other provinces they do support public transit and they do assist in the operation and capital expenditures of the transit system. And in Ontario, and it hurts us the most in Toronto, they run away from us.
Okay, my second question is, what makes you think that the federal government will send the representation 1 out of 11 members? It's like a token, and then they're going to have their voice. You know what happened, the Portland, all that, the federal government, they take over, either participate, take over, or they don't send. I think Councillor Lanzier's motion may be make more sense than yours. So what's the intention? Is the intention to confuse more so that we kill the Councillor Stint's motion?
No, my difference is, as I thought I said when I was speaking, that I think that we should invite the provincial government and invite the federal government to recommend to us a citizen appointee that would be able to come to the Commission with their perspective. If they choose not to participate and leave that seat empty, we can put a great big sign of it. Provincial representative, not available. Federal representative, not available. And at every Commission meeting, have a sign there saying that they won't show up. Because they should be there. We are Canada's largest city, and we have the most pressing need for public transportation anywhere in the country, and the least financial support from any governments. So I think you have to offer them the seat, and if you don't show up, show the fact that they won't participate.
So, like I asked the Councilor Nanjera, if this model works, then we could apply same thing to the Toronto community housing and any other services, right?
I wouldn't mind having provincial
Okay,
rep.
thank you.
Waterfront, like waterfront Toronto.
Councillor Mammoliti, questions?
Councillor, I think I do recall the politics that was played out when the then Gunn resigned. It was politics, wasn't it? That was his reason for resigning.
Mr. Gunn resigned, and I double-checked with Wikipedia, because he was concerned about the political interference that he had at the time from the chair, and he wouldn't take it anymore, so he left.
Was there a lawsuit at that time, or no?
That I can't answer, Councillor. I don't believe so. I think Mr. Gunn stood on a matter of principle, said he was there as a professional, he believed he could run the system, that the political interference from the chair at the time was one that he would no longer put up with, so he left.
Who was the chair?
It's one of our former colleagues. I don't think it's worth embarrassing each of the previous members. I'm not trying to do that.
I get why. And the next leader resigned as well for the same reasons?
The next one was Mr. Ducharme, who again, my understanding at the time when he resigned was because of the fact that there was some involvement of the chair trying to negotiate the labor agreements and cutting him out of it, and again he felt there was political interference, so he left.
Councillor Mammoliti, can you just stick on the motion, please?
I want to now move to the root of the motion and find out from the councillor how this, at the end of the day, will stop some of the politics.
What I was
playing out here.
What I believe is that there should be more citizens than councillors, because the history has been when it's more councillors than citizens, or all councillors, that the politics involved was more of what the local members wanted or the councillors wanted, and the chief general managers weren't allowed to do their job. And whether you agreed with the interference before or the termination of the current chief general manager, that seems to be on both cases what was said. And in particular, when you talk about not letting a chief general manager do his job because of the fact that we're all councillors on a commission, I believe that's also what happened on St. Clair when we started with a budget of around $35 million for a raised train track in the middle of the road, and we ended up, because the politicians wanted different, of $110 million on St. Clair Avenue. And that was politics.
Okay, your last question, Councillor Mammoliti.
Did the community want St. Clair?
Pardon me?
Did the community want St. Clair?
That's another topic, Councillor.
Shoot. Well, maybe I'll ask her.
Councillor Lindsay Luby, questions?
Yes. I'm intrigued by your suggestion about involving federal and provincial people. And what do you think of Councillor Nunziata's motion then, in light of yours, about trying to upload to Metrolinx when the province already has a staggering deficit?
Well, first of all, I'm glad you're intrigued. But I'm trying to understand the nature of the question. And I think that Councillor Nunziata has taken a different approach to trying to get the province involved by saying, give them everything. Here it is. We don't want any control in it anymore, so just take it away from us completely. And there's a question, as you've said, whether they would really do that because of their financial pressure. However, we're under real serious financial pressures, and we need their help. What I'm saying is, no, we're not going to give it to you, But we want you, sorry, Councillor Cho, could I? We want you to see what's going on and participate here. We want you to have a voice at the table, to be there from the federal or provincial government. And as I was asked by Councillor Cho, if you don't come, what if they don't represent somebody? Well, that's fine. Show the fact that they don't care about Toronto and they don't care about the citizens of Toronto by not even making a recommendation to us, and it will be a recommendation to us who's appointed. It doesn't mean they can arbitrarily put a person on. My motion says you recommend to us a citizen appointee, it'll go through our process, and we'll bring it to council. Okay. But I really believe that it's time to have some involvement from the federal government and the provincial government in the greatest need in transportation in this country, and in particular in the province here.
If, for example, those two orders of government decide that they don't want to favor Toronto because, God, Toronto's anathema to some of these governments, but therefore would not put anyone directly on the board, what about them serving in an advisory capacity? Would that kind of help at all?
Mine is simple. Ask them to give us a recommendation, each of them for an individual. Ask them to work with us. We want to work together. We want their participation. Let's see what the results are.
So, but perhaps another avenue of approach might be an advisory capacity. They may not feel quite so compelled.
Advisors aren't allowed into confidential meetings. They don't have access to the information. They can't ask questions of staff. They can sit in the meeting and be there, and it's not the same thing.
There's different ways to use them. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor, okay. Sorry, we have another questioner. Councillor Perruzza.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by the suggestion that you make that that citizens should outnumber councillors on the commission. You are aware that there was a time when the commission was made up of 3 citizen members and 2 councillors, correct?
I'm not sure, Councillor Prutz, of what all the past makeups of the commission are. My understanding in the brief research that I did here today was that prior to the early 90s, it was a majority of citizen members, non-elected, and it changed over at some time around there to majority of elected officials.
Okay, so you are aware that pre December 15th, 1988, the commission was made up of 3 citizens, 2 councillors. And do you recall why the then Metro Council decided to basically get rid of the citizen appointments and reestablish the commission as an all-councillor commission? Do you recall what happened?
Not exactly. I do know that in the late 80s, because we inherited it here in 1997, an amalgamation, that once the change was made, the budgets were dramatically cut for the Transit Commission, along with some others, and it fell into serious disrepair. And the reason Mr. Gunn was hired was to try and fix that problem. And if I recall correctly, it was so late in the process that he couldn't even order new equipment. He had to rebuild all the equipment.
Why are you aware? Do you know why in 1988 the then Metro Council basically moved to get rid of the citizen appointments to the Toronto Transit Commission and reestablish it as an all-councillor commission?
Wasn't that the same time as there became direct election to Metro Council?
Well, can I just...
But I'm asking, you're asking me, and I want to be sure I'm correct. That was direct election to Metro.
So you're not aware of the fact that the commission, dominated by citizen members, had gone off and bought an airline, basically, as I recall it, a vacation airline, and was losing a whole whack of taxpayers' money.
What's that got to do with
and
this
they were
motion?
doing it behind closed doors.
Councillor Perruzza, the motion.
Yeah.
Sorry, but Councillor, what are they
said
doing?
that citizen members should
Councillor.
outnumber councillors. One of the reasons why council moved to reestablish a councillor commission was to get some some accountability back there, because behind closed doors,
Councillor
these folks
Perruzza,
have gone off and bought an airline.
Your question.
But it's
He wasn't
actually-
aware of that. History
Okay.
has a tendency
Sorry,
to
can I
repeat
answer the
itself,
question?
and I just wanted
Okay,
to point
okay.
that out to him.
Is this a point of Mr. Pruitt's speaking, or
No,
can I answer?
I don't know. That's it. I shut his mic off. He's finished.
It's, Madam Chair, it's quite clear that there were councillors on the board then,
Yeah.
that it changed at direct election to Metro Council, that direct election to Metro Council caused a lot of problems, that anything that was done was still known by elected officials. I have no knowledge, and most of us don't, as to what transpired. Mine is not a matter of that. Mine is a matter of trying to get involvement from the provincial and federal governments, and also my belief that once we started to have a majority of elected officials who all want to do good for their communities, and nobody is here wanting to serve as a disservice to them, they all want to help, that I just believe that having that balance would be best. And if the federal and provincial government doesn't send
Thank you,
appointees,
Councillor
it's a
Schneider.
So, Speaker, I
five
No,
councillors.
Councillor Pruitt, so you're finished. Your
Thank
3
you.
minutes is up. Councillor DeGiorgio.
Thank you, Speaker. Councillor Shiner, I just, with respect to your recollection, or at least what you found with respect to the reason Rick Descharmes was, as you put it, quit. Did I understand correctly that it was the chair of the commission that, for whatever reason, prompted his quitting? Is that correct?
That's what I recall.
Hold on. I'm going to say it again. Please, if you're asking questions, ask clarification of the motion. Please, only. Okay.
I'm not after the previous members, and
appreciate-
I said my belief is that we should not have a majority of councillors if we can have qualified individuals being there. And I was looking to have a representative from the federal and the provincial government there as well, that they would at least recommend
I understand
their
that.
participation.
I understand that, and my questions are in the context of clarifying his motion, simply because in the event that a majority of councillors on the commission are responsible for some result, the councillors in the commission are attacked. On the other hand, if it's a chair that creates the same end result, the chair is not chastised in any way. And so councillor's motion is basically saying, you know what, this is the proper way to go. Not whatever motions come forward. If the executive committee doesn't have it right, if somebody else doesn't have it right, he has it right.
So what's your question?
My question is that basically the intent of his motion?
Is that your intent? Councillor
Sorry.
Shiner?
The intent of your motion is to...
Is to what? You've confused me, Councillor DeGiorgio.
Well, is the intent of your motion
Okay,
to say
if I
that
can
that's
have
the
the
optimal
audience, please
approach?
keep it down.
Sorry, but
Is the intent of your motion to say that this resolution is the optimal approach to resolving the problem we find ourselves in?
I believe that having the makeup that I've suggested here would not be a question of this council necessarily putting in a citizen board which was in full control, or citizen members, or councillors in full control, because we're looking for participation from a federal rep and a provincial rep to bring them on board. And I truly believe that we could function well under that model and still achieve everything that everybody wants.
Okay, but do you believe it's the best model, in your view?
Well, I wouldn't have recommended it if I didn't believe it was the best model.
That's all I was trying to
Okay, thank
clarify.
you.
Thank you.
Councillor Min Wong to speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any motions, so there won't be any questions. Madam Chair, I think that, when I try and make these difficult decisions, I try to start at first principles. Some might say values. And in terms of first principles, where I start from here is what is the best choice for the transit-riding public and the residents of the City of Toronto. And I think throughout this whole process, and at least my brief time on the TTC, and where we are now, I think what people want is they want to take the politics out of transit, and they want to move forward. And what I'll say is this: is we had a report that came to the TTC. I believe it was supported by every single commissioner except Councillor Ajmeri, who didn't agree with it. But Chair Stintz believed in it. She spoke about it, and she supported this. And the arrangement was the report that was approved and the report that she put on the agenda through the general manager, through the commission, was to have a new commission, 5 and 4. It was going to be 5 citizens. It was going to be 4 councillors. right? And what that report did is there were some checks and balances there. And the checks and balances were a majority of citizen members who would bring and we'd get the best people we could find, whose expertise and knowledge would create a level of rationalization in TTC decision-making. But it had 4 councillors, one of which is the chair. And there was that tension and those checks and balances so we could actually move forward and have a constructive dialogue about where we want to move forward with transit. Supported by the chair, the vice chair, Councillor Parker, all the other members that attended there. It goes to and you have to remember, when this came before the commission, this was not a partisan issue, it was not a political issue, it was supported across the board. It goes to the executive committee. There was no partisanship at all. We actually looked at that on a merit base, and we all supported it. And so here we are, and we were going to make this decision by December, right? 9 months from now. Best decision we could make. There had to be a selection process, a fair one that took some time. And in fact, through this whole, and then all of a sudden, they want to remove the commissioners, right? Injecting politics. And that is what has poisoned this arrangement. More poison. They want to change it to 7 councillors instead of 4. And when you inject that politics, in my view, the public says no to that. They don't want that politics. They want merit-based. And they want to attract the best people possible. And when you have not only a majority of 1, but a majority of 7 versus 4, that actually means all the decisions become political, right? And so I'm preferable to the staff report that came through the executive committee, because you're putting in politics, and the public doesn't want the politics. The second reason is, and this matter, the way we're approaching this in terms of dealing with this today, and in terms of having 7 members, it's going to mean that we're not going to get as many qualified candidates. Because when you had that 5-4 mix, you might have citizen members come forward who might want to participate because they know it's going to be based on merit and not politics. Now 7-4, they're a little reluctant to involve themselves in the city in the first place. And now, I think you're going to have less people wanting to be interested in serving on a political body because their good reputations, which they have developed over years, could potentially, in a matter of weeks, get thrown under the bus. That's why I support the current arrangement. I also support the staff report because I think that there needs to be a healthy disagreement and constructive dialogue on the commission. And a lot of people have talked about this idea of and I think Councillor Vaughan suggested that this is somehow a reaction to the Chief General Manager leaving and us moving forward with Mr. Byford in the interim basis. But I can tell you that that was the right decision. I'd make that decision over again if I had to. The Chief General Manager and I have had our disagreements. In fact, I think that there have been a number of wrong decisions made thus far in my term on the TTC. I think that there are too many meetings. There's too many things that go on in private.
Councillor Minnan-Wong, would you like an extension?
Yes, please.
Recorded vote.
Councillor Minnan-Wong, your vote, please. Councillor Ajamari. Councillor Carroll.
Councillor Milchin and Mihevik, please.
Councillor Lee, please.
Councillor Crisanti, please. Councillor Mamalidi, please.
Councillor Matlow, please. The motion to extend the speaking time carries 35-2.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe that in the current, in the previous term thus far, too many decisions are made in private. That has to change. I've raised those issues at the Commission, and I think that the way the Chief General Manager put some of those items on the agenda, I disagreed with. I voiced those concerns. I think with regard to Presto, where we have adopted a second-rate technology, and the Chief General Manager was recommending that. In terms of our capital project, councillor after councillor has raised issues with regard to capital, and we're going to go on the biggest capital spending campaign that we've ever seen. I've raised issues with regard to Wheel-Trans and the administration of those contracts. Once again, the Chief General Manager, in my view, has gone in the wrong direction. And then finally, we had a report that was on the agenda with regard to the maintenance of the Eglinton LRT, and the Chief General Manager put on a report suggesting that we should insource those services and not outsource them. I fundamentally disagree with that. And so I would say, Madam Chair, with regard to the issue of the Chief General Manager, when you have fundamental disagreements with the direction of an organization, it is quite appropriate to part ways when you have a disagreement in terms of a lack of vision on the Commission.
Thank you. Okay, so you have your the clerk will put the sequence of votes on the screen. If you put all your motions in numerical order first, and then look at the screen, it's much faster.
Oh, thank you, Francis. In ascending order?
Like it took me 10 seconds. That goes back to all my accounting experience, I guess. Okay, is everybody ready? Okay, so if we can put the first screen on the first motion on the screen, which is motion number 5 by Councillor Lee. Yeah, recorded vote.
Councillor Cole, please. Councillor Crisanti, please.
Motion number 5 carries 28 to 16.
Motion number 7. By Councillor Kristen Wong-Tam. Yes, recorded vote.
Councillor Crawford, please.
This is already part of the policy. Yeah.
Councillor Kelly, please. Councillor Berardinetti, please.
Councillors Lindsay Luby, Crisanti, please.
Councillor Kelly.
The motion carries 39 to 5.
Motion number 8 by Councillor Davis, recorded vote.
We're only voting on part 1 because part 2 only applies if it fails, if part 1.
Okay, so we're only voting on part 1.
Councillor de Beremaker, please.
Councillor Berardinetti, please. Councillor Berardinetti. Councillor Berardinetti, your vote, please.
Part 1 of motion 8B carries 38 to 6.
Motion number 10 by Councillor Perruzza.
Councillor Carroll, please. Councillor Minnan-Wong. Councillor Berardinetti, please. Councillor Matlow.
Councillor Crisanti, please.
Motion number 10 carries 32 to 12.
Next motion is motion number 1 by Councillor Stintz. As amended. Recorded vote.
Councillor Ainsley, please, and Councillor Mamalidi. Councillor Crisanti, please.
Motion number 1 as amended carries 29 to 15.
Motion number 3 would be redundant now, wouldn't it? Motion 3 and my great motion is redundant now. Boy, I tell you.
Nine A is next.
9A is our next motion. 9B by Councillor Fletcher.
Councillor Grimes and Councillor Robinson, please. Councillor Milchin.
9B.
Councillor Palacio and Councillor Crisanti, please.
Councillor Wong-Tam, please, and Councillor McMahon.
Motion 9B carries 38-6.
Okay, our next motion. Which one is our next motion? Motion 6, which is Councillor Carroll's motion as amended. I'm sorry, you would like 1, 2, 3? Okay, so motion, we'll vote on it separately. 1, 2, and 3, 4 will be separate. So this is on 1, 2, and 3, recorded vote.
Councillor Kelly, please. Councillor Del Grande. Councillor Pasternak, please, and Councillor Perruzza.
Parts 1, 2 as amended, and 3 of motion 6 carry 42-2.
Okay, on number 4, recorded vote.
Councillors Wong-Tam and McMahon, please.
Councillor Mihevc, please.
Part 4 of motion 6 carries 40-4.
Okay, so our next 8A by Councillor Davis. A by Councillor Davis. It's on. Can we put it on the screen, please? It's on this. There, it's on the screen.
Councillor McConnell, please. Councillor Ainsley, please.
Great. Councillor Kelly, please. Councillor Bailao, please. Councillor Shiner, please. Councillor Perruzza.
Motion 8A carries 42-2.
Okay. Our next one?